Hey, Benj. What's up, man?
Boom. Dude, Sam, how's it going, dude?
It's going well. I'm trying to think. We saw each other at WPPI. We did. I was trying to think the
Yes,
last.
that's right.
Yeah. So briefly for like a
Sheesh.
day
Yeah,
overlap.
quick second.
That was right at the beginning of when I was like, I'm not going to be close to anybody coughing like on purpose. Get me away from here. That was like right when it was hitting the news. China had already shut down. So that may be one of the last, certainly the last photography conference I'm aware of that like actually was pulled off.
I mean, I definitely remember being there and being like, should I be getting on planes right now? Like, is this a good idea? Right. I don't know.
Is it already here and all of us are just unaware?
Yeah.
Not that we have to talk about COVID the whole time,
no,
but
of course
it was
not. Was that late?
Certainly
late February, like the last week of February? Yeah.
I shot a wedding in San Antonio right after that, early March. And that was a wedding where they were a sizable number of the guests, noticeable number, decided not to come because they didn't want to risk anything. So
yeah, we went and saw my grandparents in Arizona right after that too, in like first week in March. And then we flew home with my grandma and we were just going like, should she have just driven? Like,
so I'm guessing, was that before like masks were normalized on flights?
Oh, totally.
Because I feel like that didn't happen. Yeah, that didn't happen until summertime for most airlines.
Yeah,
if not late summer. It's crazy
for sure.
But how are you holding up? Have you do you have like? I'm curious. You and I have known each other for years. Yeah. I don't know that we've ever actually sat down and talked at length about anything other than photography at like a conference.
Yeah.
How's life where you're at? You have family and everything.
Yeah.
Are you both are you all locked in your own little unit, or do you have extended family to see?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so I live like in walking distance to the the hospital I was born in. I'm pretty darn close to exactly where I grew up. So like my brother lives probably like 15 minutes away. My parents live like an hour away. Lots of family in the area and stuff. But we have I think he's like 7 weeks old now, baby.
Oh wow!
So super new. Yeah. So like waking up.
How are you carving out the time right now to talk with me?
We just started my 4-year-old. We just put him back into preschool. So we were doing like a homeschool thing with another friend who is like has similar COVID views as us. So we felt like safe sending him there, but then it just like was impossible for them and us and everything like that. And so yeah, he's going to preschool now, and it's about all we got. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so sleep is a non-existent thing for the most part. And like, especially with like the election stuff and then getting up for a newborn every couple hours. Yeah.
My sister's going through that. She just had her first kid in August of this year.
Yeah.
So it's been, it's an interesting year to add, to stress. Do you find now, this is your second child, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you find any, I feel like often I just pure anecdotally come across, the sleep issue as a new parent and everything. Do you find that you get any benefit as far as creative, like for example, you have a night of just a few hours of sleep, but then you have like 2 hours carved out where, I don't know, maybe the kid's sleeping or he's with his grandparents or something like that. Do you find that actually energizes you to work more, or do you just take any extra time to just get physical rest? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for me to turn my brain off. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, just like sleep when you have time and all this stuff. My schedule normally too, when my wife is working, she works like an evening shift as a nurse. And so I'll work from like 9 or 10 a.m. to like 2. And then we'll kind of like high five swap parenting. She'll go to work. And then I will watch like our son and I guess now our newborn eventually when she goes back. Until I put him to sleep, and then I'll come back out to my office that's in my backyard and I'll work while I'm watching the monitor of him sleeping for another like 3 hours, go to sleep. And then, I've found that like my overall work time has decreased since having a kid by about 2 hours a day. So I have about 2 hours less per day to work than I had before we had kids. So it just means that my productivity levels and things have to be a lot faster, which I mean, in creativity wise, throwing limitations on something kind of forces creativity. So I found more workarounds and workflows and all sorts of stuff to make that stuff possible.
Cool. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah.
You're forced to optimize and create efficiency if you're planning to survive.
Yeah.
Were you like that previously, like before having a kid, or did you work more ad hoc, or just whenever you wanted, or were you always
totally.
fairly disciplined?
Yeah, it was definitely not like a set schedule. Just like work whenever, work wherever. I always loved having an office outside of my house because I found that I was more productive and could separate life from work a lot easier.
But did you have a studio? Am I remembering correctly? You actually had you hosted a few weddings.
Yep.
You've done, one of the things I've always liked about your talk is how you can proudly say you've done every vendor's job at a wedding.
Totally. Yeah.
Including being the venue host. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I used to have a studio downtown in the city I live in now. And I decided to just like offer it to a few people to host their wedding there if they were interested, when they told me, they didn't have like the money or resources or space or whatever. So I did it, just to see what it was like, which was, But
you're purely working out of what I'm looking at now, I assume, is your backyard shed. I messaged you a couple times about, very envious. I've tried to find something myself. There's something I think about having that buffer, that sound separated, even if it's literally your own backyard.
It's huge.
Enables some focus. Yeah, it's
totally
a great idea.
Yeah. It like definitely makes life a little bit easier to separate, and like having all your computers and stuff out here. And is
there anything, if somebody was like me or anyone else, perhaps, I have a feeling the uptick will be noticeable this year in people wanting something like this.
For sure.
On their own property. Is there anything that you would recommend or that you learned post moving in and actively using the space that you wish you had adjusted for, or more outlets, or strategically placing things in some way?
No, totally. So for those who don't know, like I have a 192 square foot shed essentially in my backyard that we've obviously made into my office / studio, which makes it easy for me. I've always had a space outside my home, whether it was like a workspace somewhere or another shooting space or studio or whatever, because I find that I can't be very productive in my own house, because then my wife's like, why didn't you do the dishes today? And I was like, I was at work. And, having that.
But it doesn't feel like it when you're in the room with the door shut. It's like,
So like having that separation, and then now, especially when I have kids, having a separate space is like, next level. But so like I built mine. I think figuring out what your city's like local ordinances and specifications are is like kind of a key thing too. So like in my city, I can build a detached shed essentially as long as it's under 12 feet tall and under 200 square feet without a permit. So that's basically what I did. I just made almost the largest structure I could without having a permit. So then I didn't have to worry about all that other stuff, because in Tacoma right now, like accessory dwelling units or whatever the ADU thing is, they're trying to work some of that stuff out right now. I would say if I could do it over again and I knew how easy the permitting process was, which I don't, the only thing I would probably do was make it like slightly larger and add like a tiny kitchenette and a bathroom. Because if I had the resources and the space, and it wasn't going to cost too much more, that way it would just be like, if friends or whatever ever came over, they could just literally stay out there. And if I ever wanted to in the future, or anybody else wanted to, like you could rent it out as a single studio, which would be nice. And then the other thing is,
or something.
And then the other thing is like, just if I have to pee or something like that, like I have to like, all right, cool, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing and go like back inside the house. And then sometimes that creates its own new situation of running into family and whatever else is going on, and then maybe I'm doing laundry for 45 minutes or something in the middle of my workday, because you moved between worlds at that point, which doesn't happen very often. But
it seems well worth the investment, and I have to imagine this need is going to be through the roof, not just a noticeable uptick, but with everybody working from home now, not only will I'm guessing will we see a big shift in people moving out of cities to cheaper, suburbs or even the country in some ways, but just like, I looked into, so did you build it yourself?
So I didn't personally like hammer the nails and stuff.
Yeah.
But I was the one that like we had like some materials that my parents had and stuff like that. And so I was the one that like designed where everything went and what things went where and all the specifications. And then I just hired a random builder guy to come in and put it all together for me, basically. And then my dad is an electrical contractor. So like once the framing and everything like that on the outside was done, then we like went in and wired it all how we wanted and added all that stuff ourselves.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Anytime you can save on labor. I've had so many people out to our backyard to give me an assessment of what's possible or not. And I think it's an awkward price point because it seems like most contractors I've talked to have said like, no, it's just too far back and it's too hilly and we can't do it. Or honestly, it's just like a weird zone where I don't think they would have to charge too much for what it would end up being, just like a square room of 200 square feet that like they don't even like bother writing me the quote. And then I've looked into prefab solutions as well, which seem great, like the sweet spot. You can get something around 200 square feet for like 12 grand and it comes literally on a tractor and they crane it in. But it's a little tricky specifically where I live to do that because it's kind of a hilly area. I don't know. So I recently got two different quotes to have this prefab unit that I found either craned in and put on the section of our flat roof, like literally just put it on our roof and redo the roofing and everything to be proper, but that was going to add an extra. It was basically going to cost as much as the prefab unit just to do the roof work. So I was like, I don't know. And then the only other option they quoted out for me was like, well, we could also just helicopter it in and drop it in your backyard, like the concrete area of our backyard. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Although it would be an incredible video.
Oh my gosh.
Here's my home office. I'm helicoptering in.
That would be nuts.
Apparently, the most expensive part is, of course, the helicopter, but then the rigging is really because you have to hire a crew that knows exactly how to rig that stuff, and it's incredibly complicated, of course, dangerous. I would love to see my neighbors, though, look up one day.
What in the world?
There's a room being hela-dropped into his backyard.
Or just onto your roof itself. Like,
I know. Even the crane would be pretty epic to see that, but it's way too expensive when you add it all up. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I, like I said, I've had contractors come out and take a look, but they just always seem to shy away or excuse their way out of it. But obviously, if you have the material, somebody could just come and build a structure. Assuming you're within, whatever permit range you have.
Totally. It feels like for me, like we just found somebody that was, well, also ours is much more accessible. Like we have an alleyway 3 feet that way. So that part was way easier as well. But we just found some people that like had just kind of like do handiwork around, like they're just generally like they put in fences for my parents and random stuff like that. So it was just like, oh, you can build structures too? Like, cool. And you'll do it for like half the cost of even like a prefab thing. Sold.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So
I'm thinking about someday investing in one of these companies that do the prefab units because for easier accessible houses, I think that's going to be a booming business. We'll see. I don't know. How is has there been a significant, you're full-time wedding photographer, right? That's like the primary driver in your, how's life been with weddings? You don't have to exaggerate too much, but I am curious. Have you, go for it. Yeah. Just give me
I would say like half of my weddings this year probably like did some sort of postponement. I mean, basically like everything moved in some way, right? Maybe like half to a third just straight up moved to next year. And then even some of my weddings that I booked for 2021 are now giving me like soft 2022 dates. So I'm sure a lot of other people that are wedding photographers are experiencing that sort of thing as well. But yeah, I had a bunch of them that also did like, smaller elopements and smaller gatherings. They were going to have like, big 200 person wedding. And then they moved to like something like 50 or something small. So I did a few of those this year. And then I had one that did that too. And then has moved, they moved their whole wedding up to 2021 and then decided after they did their small gathering that they were just like, that's it. Like, we're fine. Like,
I've had a lot of those, like going into it, they were like, we're just gonna do something small and then definitely do the big wedding with the party next year. And I think people are just sort of, once they're legally married and they've had their closer friends and family.
Yeah.
It's like, fine. I keep looking at the calendar for next year and it's incredibly packed and busy, and I keep getting inquiries, and I'm like, nothing's really changed though. I'm hoping what is occurring is the mental picture in people's heads of what their wedding's going to look like has been adjusted now to be more comfortable with a smaller group and masks and whatever, and maybe more outdoors.
Yeah.
And so the mental, like the picture in their head, they've come to accept as being, we're fine with it. Versus earlier this year where it was like, no, we want it to be normal.
Yeah.
We're going to wait.
Totally.
So I'm really hoping we don't get a whole nother wave of like spring and summer, which I have to imagine things are going to basically be kind of where we're at now, other than maybe some people getting vaccinated by then, hopefully. And who knows what access is going to look like, but
totally.
Regardless, I'm crossing my fingers that picture in people's heads, they're more comfortable with it and they just want to go for it, and there won't be any mass exodus to 2022 because
totally. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know what to do.
The idea of the people that, and you're like in Baltimore, like I was just there 2 weeks ago.
What?
I know,
oh, man,
but you were in.
I was in Maine.
Like Maine. Yeah. That's where it was. So, and I was just there in and out too, really quick, but it felt like people there were taking everything pretty seriously. I live in like outside of Seattle, like everyone's taking all this stuff really seriously, like masks everywhere, that kind of thing. But then I see people in like, Texas and stuff, and they've been doing like 200-person weddings since May, So I think it's the other thing is figuring out like because I feel like people around here kind of have adjusted to the idea of you're not going to have probably a giant 200-person wedding next year in the Northwest. It's probably not going to happen. But I do think it's interesting because you're someone that travels a lot as well. And so I wonder if you're going to end up showing up to weddings in Texas next year that are 200-person. Like, what's your kind of feeling about your own safety level and everything? Like, according to because you've been shooting weddings as well, like through this, you've been doing some. I've been doing some feeling safer than others. What's your kind of feeling on that?
Yeah. I would not be doing any of what I've done if I didn't have access to like hospital grade N95 masks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it if I was just wearing a regular cloth mask and, around anybody else. So I do wear cloth masks whenever I'm like out and about in my local area, because like you said, people here have been really good. And if everyone's wearing regular cloth masks, it's generally effective and fine. With the wedding, no, there is, it's like, okay, we tried. There's a best effort. Some people listen or wear their masks appropriately and some don't. But for me, I feel perfectly safe being in my I think I made a Patreon post about it, my Evo mask N95 with swappable filters, which is great. And then a cloth mask over that. Sucks to shoot in. Like I've learned to become comfortable getting home with a dry throat. The first couple of weddings, I was like, I got it. But it's just because of the air, the pull and the push from your nose and mouth is just more stress and strain. It dries my throat out. But I'm perfectly comfortable traveling on an airplane, going to a wedding anywhere, and however it unfolds, as long as people aren't touching me too much or breathing down my neck, literally, which hasn't been a problem. I'm fine doing it. And I also have incredibly low risk environmental factors. No kids or, my mom lives 4 hours away. I see her every 4 months. So I don't have those kinds of people but it is scary to think, if you did slip up, if you were, sick somehow and you went to somebody else's wedding and then you got people there sick, it's like, well, you don't want to be the transmission vector for 4 different weddings, right? That would be scary.
Totally.
I don't know. I guess then you flew on an airplane. It's the safest and most pleasant airline experience I've ever had. I love what has occurred for airlines, at least flying Southwest. I don't know. There's like no lines. Everybody's respectful. They kind of keep a buffer, a nice little bubble. It's not 6 feet, but it's still like a little bubble. And, everyone's a little more courteous and slow. I love it.
Well, and like Southwest, I flew Southwest out of Baltimore to the Bay Area, to San Jose a couple weeks ago, because I had my situation was I had 2 weddings back to back, because at the beginning of October the bride had tested positive for COVID, and so she tested positive at the end of September, and so they had to postpone their wedding at the beginning of October to the end of October, which meant that I had a Baltimore wedding on Friday and then a Bay Area wedding on Saturday. And so I had to fly Southwest, which I don't normally do. And I had like 2 hours of sleep, and it was just one of those crazy weekends. But I will say, yeah, on both Southwest and Alaska, there's like the middle seats open on everything. And like most of the flights have been not close to full. So the whole process of, getting through security, like boarding the plane, everything is just so much easier because they're not full flights.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that way for a while. It feels almost like what these systems, including like literal highways, were designed for in terms of capacity. It's like, oh, this is great. Now everybody has 4 cars, so it's crazy. But nobody's out and using them, and it seems like the bandwidth is appropriate to what it was all designed for originally. So I don't know. In some ways, it's nice to see the silver lining, or the half full optimistic perspective. Nessa mentioned when I just got home from a run, like right before we sat. You mentioned she talked to you directly, or you just posted about testing. Do you guys have really easy access? Nessa and I have not been tested. We haven't really done a ton of research into what's here. What is your access to testing like there? Is it just like you order a kit, or do you have to go somewhere? Or you said your wife is a nurse, so maybe she has.
No, so and that's why I just posted like a little poll on Instagram, because I was curious, because I've heard just different things from different people across the country. And so hearing everybody's stuff where I am, it's like all down to the county health department, right? Like they're the ones that are controlling everything. So I'm in a county called Pierce County, and they have a mobile testing site where they just have like this giant trailer that they bring around to, I think there's like 5 or 6 sites per day, and they just pull it up at a parking lot somewhere at a public park or a school or whatever.
Did that Walmart, Walgreens thing ever happen? Remember when they announced that in May, where they were like, we got Walgreens, Walmart, and we're going to set up these drive-throughs in all their parking lots. It's going to be a public-private cooperative thing. I've never seen any of those. Maybe they did occur there, but not here.
There's one Walgreens in my city that has it, but I've tried every time. I just try to get into them, and it's always like, it only lets you schedule out 3 days in advance. You have to schedule first. You can't just like drive up, to my knowledge, at least. And every single time there's not been a single appointment available. And the county's mobile testing site was actually right next to where the Walgreens is when we just got tested a few days ago. And the line was like 40
and
people.
See, that is where I'm like, the last place I want to be is the line of everybody who thinks they may have had it or be actively like symptomatic.
To be fair, it was like it's a drive up thing too. So like everyone's in your car, so you're pretty good. I will say though, the county one, we live really, really close to a university here, like in walking distance. And so I saw that there was one at the university next to us for the county they were setting up. And so I was like, oh, cool. I'll go over there and get tested, because I had just flown and didn't really think about the fact that it was at the university so that all the university students could get tested. And so there was a line like at least a half a mile long. And I guess it had been like that all day long. And it wasn't in cars. It was people standing 6 feet away from each other. But I think the university probably just mandated that every kid just go get tested. But in general, like our county at least has those mobile setups. So you just drive up, they shove something way up your nose while you're still in your own car. People are basically in hazmat suits. And then you get your stuff texted to you within like 36 hours. So
cool. Okay.
It's a pretty cool setup. Yeah. And then I just heard from somebody else in Seattle, so in King County, which is just like north of me, they have the option to do drive-through, or they'll drop off a kit at your house and come pick it up the next day, and you get your stuff.
That's the dream.
Yeah, you get your stuff within like 12 hours or something. Like it's just unreal.
I think even before a vaccine, if we can just crazy accelerate the distribution and effectiveness or accuracy of testing, that seems like
absolutely
a fantastic answer to so much. I mean, it didn't save the White House. They did massive testing, with 15-minute results, and there was still that crazy super spreader event. But still, it's better, I think, than expecting a vaccine to just drop in and everybody get it. And it's fascinating.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things for us for like Thanksgiving coming up. Like we're probably going to see like my brother and his wife and my parents and stuff like that. Like not a huge gathering, but basically my immediate family is probably going to get together. We were just like, yeah, just like maybe on Monday of that week, like everyone get tested, and then at least you'll know from that point that you don't have it. You know, it's not like a foolproof thing, but like it's as good as you're going to get at that point, as long as you're being safe. And you know,
that's what I've heard. Ryan Brenheiser, I've talked to him a few times in a group message with a bunch of photographers I'm sort of actively in.
Yeah.
He mentioned, I think he's shot a couple weddings, but one in particular where they dropped like an extra 20 grand to get every single guest tested on the wedding day. As they were walking in or something. And that does seem like a pretty great approach, but we'll see. So one of the things I've observed, I don't know how active have you historically been on Twitter? I'm a big time lurker there. I really don't tweet much, but I feel like I've noticed an uptick in your.
The last like 4 years. I mean, you can probably add the uptick there for sure.
4 years, yeah.
I've been on Twitter for like 12 years or something, and it's been like the one that has been just kind of fun to say whatever about anything.
Yeah,
and like
see, Twitter for me is always. I like doing that on Facebook statuses. Twitter, it is so political. Everything is so political. Facebook is also everything. It's just, but all of this is like horrible. Instagram is the one where it doesn't feel like it has been completely overwhelmed with political discussion, although it's not great.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. We don't have to wade too much into the election. It's a pretty interesting time, but how are people? Well, Washington, that went clearly blue, right? And that is
I mean, like our governor race and our thing were both like 60-40 or something, which isn't probably as blue as people would assume, I guess, about Washington. But another thing
I've always been surprised anytime visiting Washington, Oregon, or mostly Northern California, the number of literal Trump signs that I've seen out, or just the general conservative sort of. You get a vibe, and it's
totally. I think people just assume that like Seattle and whatever is like this liberal haven of just like the entire state's all blue. But I mean, Seattle, the big cities, everyone there's like a college town and stuff like that. It's fairly blue, but then most of the state is actually on the other side of the mountains, and it's all like desert and stuff like that, which people also don't consider when they think about Washington. And that's all like farmland and typical more conservative country for sure.
Which I'm sure I just haven't listened to enough experts or podcasts. I still don't quite understand the anytime you get a denser collection of people in a big city or even medium cities, the more dense, the more liberal leaning. And I know that it's easy to think in your head that, oh, well, when you live around a more variety of people, you become a little more aware and I hate the word tolerant, but you just have a different sense of other people's way of life. And you're probably more accepting of that. But I don't think it can be that easy. I feel like, I grew up in Central Virginia. This is the first time in 40 years, I think, my hometown, Lynchburg, went blue. It's so crazy because you look at Virginia as a whole went blue, but it's mostly because of the Northern Virginia areas, super dense, very, very crowded. So, but the rest, there's like, it's all red. And then there's tiny little Lynchburg, which is home to Liberty University, by the way.
Oh,
little Lynchburg all by itself. It's blue. And anyway, but what I was going to get at is I grew up around, people that are very conservative, but also super kind and understanding of how other people live, and they're not hateful. So it's just strange to me that it aligns so heavily tracking density. I don't know. I don't understand it.
I mean, it's all like anecdotal or whatever, but like that's kind of my, not to get into politics too much, but my like political leanings and everything like that have changed dramatically from like my hometown of super small town, semi like rural suburbia. So I grew up like super conservative, like, voted Bush in the first elections as soon as I turned 18, and was just, generally really conservative. And then as I like started traveling and seeing other places, and then especially once my wife and I moved to Seattle, and we were in a neighborhood called Capitol Hill where it was just like super diverse, like, like my thoughts and mindset about things changed a lot once I started listening to other people's stories and how things affected them and that kind of thing, for sure. And that's, only
it's just
my
strange to me. it doesn't quite make sense in my brain. Maybe I'm just in a weird state of being naive. But that exposure of other people's, like you said, the word stories as the key element, would then align you with a more liberal or conservative mindset. It's just weird to me. Like, why does it have to be like that? It seems like you could also hear a diverse array of stories and be like, oh, I'm actually going to trend a little more conservative for whatever reason.
Sure.
It's strange to me.
I found that too. Like, I mean, I've listened to, and I've tried to just like have sort of open discussions with people on other social media platforms. And I've heard people say the same thing, that like once they had kids, they became more conservative again and stuff like that.
Yes. But I assume once you also accumulate some wealth and some equity in life, it makes sense that you have more to lose. Perhaps you don't want to have a government like scrape that out.
Totally. And I've had a lot of conversations with other like business owners that maybe they used to be more like socially liberal, but then especially now that the pandemic's hit, they've been like swung way conservative because they're like afraid of losing their businesses, and they're sick of the lockdowns and that kind of thing. And yeah, I think for me though, the thing is just like finding ways to like empathize and like, hear a story from anybody like outside of your own worldview and go, oh, so like that's why you think the way you do, like whether that is like a really informed way or whatever, at least it allows you to think of through like, yeah, why they're in that mindset, and you can put yourself in that situation too and see how that would be possible.
That's one of the things I'm absolutely most grateful for about the job that we do as wedding photographers, is that very intimate, like super compressed exposure to people's family relationships and the chemistry between all these different parent types, grandparent types, friend types, and how that manifests into the personalities of your clients. And it really has been an insanely amazing window into people's lives, and having nothing to do with the photo aspect of it and the actual documentation. Just being around all these different personalities and environments has been that's my favorite part, honestly. I wish I had been better about keeping an actual, perhaps like a journal or written account of what I felt and observed from these people beyond just the photos, because I think it goes way deeper than the pictures. But
totally. And I think a lot about that, because you're learning so many different cultural things depending on like what background the people are from and all sorts of stuff. And then there's just a lot of things that you have like an idea in your mind about maybe a certain type of culture or a certain type of person or even a certain region, right? And so in your mind, that thing is all hypothetical. And then you get there and you experience whatever that thing is. And then it moves from being hypothetical to being a reality. And then you can see, what parts of your own imagination about whatever that thing was were real, and what other parts were just like either a stereotype or something you heard from somebody else or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I will say that plays in absolutely perfectly to the problem with the internet, social media in particular, in that you don't get everyone thinks that they're experiencing reality on these platforms.
Yeah.
And you're not. There's so many people that I meet in person and I knew previously online only. I'm like, oh, I really don't like you. Or I thought I was going to hate you and I really love you. You're amazing. Sure. But like online, you totally suck. People are literally kind of like building these two kind of versions of themselves in some way. It's almost like their inner voice and then their actual physical voice. And I kind of wonder what is starting to matter more in the way the world actually operates. It's scary to think about right now, given the state of things. I'm praying for some government regulation when it comes to social media. One of my absolute favorite podcasts that kind of dives into more of the social implications of these kinds of technologies is called Stratechery. And one of the things, the writer and analyst who's like the main guy, he runs his website. It's called also Stratechery. His name is Ben Thompson. He thinks that there should be a mandate that you should be able to transfer your social graph. So, your username with all your followers and people you follow from one platform to another seamlessly. It should just be built into the technology as a capability, which would totally upend a lot of business models. But I think makes so much sense. If you can, you're on Twitter or whatever, and it becomes too toxic, or just that specific platform and the way that they do their algorithms or whatever, you could just like one click over to something else. And if anybody else from that platform that you were previously associated with is also on the other one, obviously you can't force somebody to sign up or whatever, then it would transfer, and it would be like a seamless transplant of the social graph, which I think would be, first of all, create a leverage point, or remove a leverage point from a lot of these companies in terms of their power, right?
Sure.
People, it's so hard. I mean, I don't know how well Patreon is going for you. I know I follow you, but I actively try not to look at other people because I don't want to be influenced and steal ideas, because that just happens whether you want to or not sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's so hard to build something somewhere else from scratch. It's like pulling teeth. It is just so much work.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
And all of this energy and work that people have built on something like Instagram or whatever with their business and photography, you are now like beholden to this company. And I hate that. Like, self-employment is supposed to have this layer of freedom with it that's slowly getting eroded as, again, like you're literally having to start to pay for ads or reach or whatever it is that didn't used to be when you started. So
totally. Well, and I think the interesting thing about that, though, for me, is like I follow some people on different platforms, but I don't follow them on other platforms, you know, because I like maybe I like their voice or I like what they say on one platform, but I'm like not interested in what they say on another one, because I definitely compartmentalize that stuff too. You know what I mean? Like, because on Twitter specifically, like I follow obviously like politics, but I also follow like Seattle sports stuff, and then I also follow like a subset of photographers. Some people that I don't even like necessarily follow on Instagram, but I follow their photography stuff on Twitter because of how they present their stuff. Because each social media has its own kind of like voicing, I feel like. And so like sometimes I'll like how somebody like posts their stuff on Twitter, but like I like go to their Instagram and I'm like, I don't really care. You know, like
that's a really good point. I do wish there were broader, like one-click batch interactions you could adjust for. I went through one of Patreon posts from this year that I made was a macro, how to use a macro to do mass muting of people you follow that maybe you don't want to unfriend or cut off completely, but not see their stuff unless maybe I actively seek it out. I try to be very mindful of, is this a reactive or a proactive relationship on the platform? Am I seeking out these people that surface to top of mind and I actively want to keep up with what they're doing, or do I just let the app choose for me? And I feel like apps where I've taken a more proactive for myself stance of like, oh, I want to see what Benj has been up to, and just like, go check it out, like that. And also it kind of narrows your scope of what you're exposed to massively, because you're only going to remember maybe a couple dozen people that you actively like to keep up with in various places. I wish, and I also, I really want to start calling out Apple to build in tools that actually limit time and use on the device. Because this like, okay, you said you only wanted an hour, so we're stopping you, but just type in your PIN code. It's fine. You can do whatever you want. That's not real. That's not really helping anything.
Because I set that up for Instagram. I set it up for like half an hour. Right. Like, so I only have a half-hour day. It doesn't even do anything. It just like says, hey, you've been on for a half an hour. And then I'm usually like in the middle of writing somebody or doing something. And so I just instantly click it and just like get off my screen. And then I forget that it was on there. Now you've got this
voice in the back of your head, which is like every day stacking on top of itself. Like, oh man, I'm going longer than I should have. I know I shouldn't have. And now you've got this extra layer of guilt, self-imposed guilt, where if you could just like have the access cut off for real permanently and like agree, this is all software, people. You can make it do whatever you freaking want.
But money.
Yeah,
money.
I know. But Apple,
like,
I feel like Apple has done a great job of staying separated in terms they aren't incentivized to keep people using Facebook. I don't think, other than people not being happy with their devices because they have these lockdown tools. But again, it's a self-imposed thing. I would love to see that.
Well, don't you have like a thing that is like a
physical lockbox that I love?
Yeah, right.
And I use it absolutely, and that. But it's stupid. Like, why do I have to own 4 of these stupid lock boxes? Why can't I just do this on my phone? This is so silly. Just get it done. And
auto self-imposed do not disturb thing that like allows you to have it in your pocket, but you can only get calls from specific people or whatever, you know?
I mean, why not just build the option? If nobody uses it, if it doesn't become massively popular, then fine, whatever. This is code. They can afford to just write. That would take a day to program, but whatever.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Speaking of the iPhone, not to deviate too much, but my ADD brain is kicking in. Did you buy one of the new phones? Are you? Do you?
I did not. I have
the latest?
I have the 11 Pro still, and pretty much what I've heard from everybody is that like, unless you really want 5G and like the Pro Max with the new camera features, it's like,
Yeah.
Wasn't that was kind of your take
that was
too,
exactly
right?
my
You're
take.
like,
I was super excited to see the actual dimensions of the 12 mini, and that's what it's actually physically smaller than the 11 Pro, which I'm back on.
Yeah,
and I really love this device, but it is still I think a touch bigger than I would want, and I do like the iPhone 4 or 5 design with the harsh corners, but again, I believe that style does not work in a form factor of this size or bigger. It's just too clunky. And so the mini is smaller than this, and I think it might be the perfect phone. It's got the same processor.
Totally.
It's got the ultra wide and the standard lens, which is fine with me. I never use the telephoto very often. And so I'm excited to try the 12 mini. And then
do you feel like, because you have like an iPad Pro as well, right? Like, do you feel like your iPad use augments the need to have a larger phone? Or if you didn't even have an iPad, you would be totally content on using a smaller iOS device?
Yeah, I think I'd be okay going smaller. And I've had the max size phones before. I generally trend toward the middle size phones, but this mini is a 5.7 inch diagonal screen, which I don't know exactly what phone historically that most aligns with. It's bigger than the iPhone 5 screen. It's bigger than the iPhone 6 and 7 screen. So it's going to be great. I think it's going to be the perfect form factor. And I've just noticed like the ease and convenience of, and just the pleasure of seeing something on a larger screen inherently makes it more, it calls out to you. It like you want to, it sucks you in, and having a smaller screen like the Palm phone, which is way too small, but still kind of cool. And I'm mostly going to use it for wedding days as a backup and to track my gear bag in case it's ever stolen. This is the Palm phone. It runs Android. It's its own. It's literally just for anybody who's listening that may not know, literally fits in your palm. Fantastic little device. It does everything you could possibly need, but not the best battery life. So yes, I'm hoping the smaller iPhone 12 mini is sort of the perfect size for me. And it'll be a little more annoying to look at, but that's okay. I want a little bit of that pushback with this all-consuming, soul-sucking device that I think most anybody can admit to having any issue if they had it previously intensified, given the fact that they're locked in at home more than they would rather be generally on their iPhone. And I do love the iPad Pro. I mostly, to be honest, use my iPad Pro as using the sidecar feature as an extended display.
Yeah, that's right.
I absolutely freaking love that feature. And it's just an external monitor, but you can interact with like Mac OS through an Apple Pencil, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I use that a lot, but I think in the next week or maybe a few days, they're going to announce the new laptops with Apple Silicon. And I think hopefully. as they allow native iPad apps to run on your Mac, perhaps features like Sidecar and stuff will enable touch, because I would love to be able to use my finger on Mac OS using it as an extended screen. That's the dream for me.
Totally.
I don't know why they limit it to the pencil. That's kind of annoying right now, but it does work.
Do you feel like it's clunky at all? Like is there much lag? Because my iMac, I'm still waiting for the Silicon iMacs. So I have like a 2014 or I don't even know how old my iMac is. Wow. It's super old, but I've been waiting for the Silicon ones for so long. And so that's what I'm waiting for. And so I can't even do Sidecar on my iMac because it doesn't, it's like the one generation right before. So maybe it's a 20, I don't even know what it is, but
it's no lag. Is that what you asked about? Lag?
Yeah, lag. And so like, could you do retouching with an Apple Pencil on
100%? Yes.
Via Sidecar?
That's almost exclusively how Nessa illustrates as well. Drawing. She does use Procreate, which is a native iPad app. But she basically, mirrors her laptop to her iPad and draws in Photoshop quite often, if not most of the time.
Because that's one of the other limitations about the iPad in general too, is just like, Lightroom, you can't use all of the same things because you're stuck with like Lightroom CC and not the classic version. And then Photoshop also has a few less features, but I love interacting with the iPad in so many ways. So
Same.
if you could kind of jump into some of those features from the desktop apps, that would be ideal.
Speaking of Photoshop, have you played around with the most recent updates?
Like the neural features of like changing people's expressions and stuff?
Yeah. Dude, there is no lag. Yeah, I just repaired my Apple Pencil. It's like real time. There's no lag at all. Yeah, it's fantastic. Nice. Oh, and by the way, I in particular love Sidecar. I don't know how often you get around to doing music stuff, but it's so nice to have like a Logic project up on my iMac and then just shoot it over to my iPad Pro, get up and go to, because oftentimes if you're doing music, you have like a microphone set up, maybe not right at your desk. So you can just take your laptop or your iPad and go record drums real quick and like, hit start and stop from it's so much nicer than having to like used to use log me in to remote in from like a laptop into my iMac to control crap like that. Anyway, Sidecar is just an amazing feature. But I was getting on a track and I totally derailed myself. Shoot. The neural features of Yeah, they're creepy and they're weird. And this is another thing. I'm in a couple of iMessage chats with other photographers. How do you feel about, you've got the perfect family photo. It's awesome. The kid, everybody's smiling but the kid and, the baby or whatever. And you have a shot of the baby smiling and you could hop in, do some layers, face swap. Boom, you got a picture. That already crosses a lot of lines that I'm like weird about. But how do you feel about running that photo instead of doing a face swap through, the neural smile generator, and it just makes the kid smile, like adding data.
I mean, it's a different thing. But like, I think for like a portrait and stuff like that, like that is the intended outcome. Like when you took that photo, that was the intended outcome. And so as long as it looks natural and like, I'm okay with it as long as it, works, because I'm still doing that face swap thing. Because every family grouping, I'm taking like 3 to 4 photos of the exact same thing so that I can make sure that I have one that everyone's like looking with their eyes open and smiling and stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And usually that works out. And maybe once or twice per wedding max, I have a series that like not everyone lines up in one particular photo, so I have to face swap somebody. I'm just used to that and okay with that. So if I could do it software based and not have to like, trace someone's face out and then slap it on there with another layer and then blend it in perfectly and stuff like that, then cool. But it's a bizarre concept because thinking like right now, cool feature, but like where it's going is what is like, I guess, concerning, right?
100%, especially with the unknown applications of these things. I mean, Apple was late to the game of sort of auto editing the selfie camera. When you had it up, it would like do extra smoothing and things to help you out without any feature notification that this was on or ability to turn it off. It was they're just trying to make you look nice because people think that it's a better camera if they look nicer in it, even if it's skin smoothing or changing the light. So as that gets better and more realistic, it freaks me out as a wedding photographer because I feel like we might approach a scenario where I take a picture of how somebody looks and they literally don't think they look like that anymore because they see themselves on a FaceTime camera and they think they photograph one way all the time. But in reality, they don't. And so I either don't edit the photos to align with that expectation or it just is a missile. Even if I did edit it, maybe I do it differently than the Apple selfie camera happens to do it. Whatever. People are getting a distorted reality of what they look like. I don't know. It's uncomfortable.
Well, and they're putting out a distorted reality of what they look like because especially with like influencers and bloggers and stuff like that who are using Facetune and whatever on every single photo, you're putting out like a completely like perfection version of yourself most of the time, right? Like, well, I'm not doing that because I don't really post photos of myself and stuff, but like you see people clearly doing that. And like, I don't know if you've run across this either, but I've run across, not often by any means, but a few times where I've like seen a client of mine post one of their photos and I like kind of do like a little, did I edit it like that? And then I go back and like out of my own curiosity, I'll pull them up side by side and go, oh, they augmented it themselves in one of these apps ever so slightly. But like for me, who like took the photo, edited it, everything, I can go, that's not what I did actually. I remember seeing that, and it's like there's a little something off there, you know?
So now we enter a world where not only do you have to be concerned with your artistic intention being inaccurately reproduced because of filters, of what generally photographers push back against, with like the one click, like don't add an Instagram filter on top of the photo that I edited. But now, not only that, you have clients where in one way I want to be like, if you want to Facetune yourself, whatever, after I deliver it, go ahead. Sure. But at the same time, there is a degree of realism and there's the tastefulness to that, where if they posted a picture that credited me and it was clearly, in my opinion, not tasteful, liquefy or skin smoothing, I don't want that to be attributed to how I edit. So now we've got two different versions of editing to fight against. But at the same time, I wouldn't personally, if a client asked me, do you mind if I like Facetune this to be awesome? I'd be like, sure. But I kind of want to just start maybe saying, don't credit me for anything. Like, just don't credit me. I'll post my own photos. People can find me that way. And I don't care about you giving me proper credit if you're going to edit stuff. But it's a slippery slope in either direction. It's crazy.
It is just weird though, like especially this year, because like so many of our interactions have become more online anyway. Like your online persona and your online look and what you put out there to the world is becoming more and more of what people consider the reality about themselves. And so that is just like, I don't know, just like obviously we've, the social network and all sorts of stuff has been done and studies on it, but that's just an interesting thing that we're going to have to deal with as a society moving forward in a big way, right? Like,
I don't know what the tipping point, or if there is anything that would ignite a pushback, other than the other thing that freaks me out is, as a photographer, I need to show work to get new work. But I have felt, as my audience has grown over the years, a little bit of a upswing in people saying like, oh, do you mind like not posting pictures of us? Of course, I'm in DC, so I get a lot of government workers, and I've always just been like, yeah, sure. And I've charged an add-on fee for doing that. But I could see in a world where, things like deep fakes, or like, just face swapping on videos and all that, where people, the majority opinion is like, oh, no. You put my face on the internet without asking me? That's not okay. Right now, we are living in a time where like the expectation is you're free to like post photos unless we told you not to, and we paid extra not to, whatever. Totally. But I could totally see that changing. And I think a lot of people are going to regret having as many photos of themselves on the internet as they do, due to just being able to like take that face and put it on literally anything anybody wants. Although I am very excited. I could see, once the technology, face swapping in particular, gets good enough, dude, I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is any movie that comes out, you're going to be able to see yourself as a character. It's going to be a feature. They're going to say, they're going to put your
eventually,
face
for sure.
And whoever acted it, whatever. I could totally see that being a selling point, and just the way a normal movie is seen. You see your friends, your wife as all the characters in the movie. It's crazy.
Which is like amazing, but also terrifying. Like, because I feel like that's going to be, man, this is like a deep dive, but like, I feel like that's going to further augment your own reality. Like, it's going to be an augmented reality thing, but it's going to augment like what you believe to be reality more and more. And you're going to disconnect from your own actual physical reality.
Oh yeah.
More and more as you see that kind of stuff.
Look how awesome I am.
Or you're going to
sat on the couch for 4 hours instead of,
or negative stuff.
Right.
Like maybe you put in, maybe someone you actually don't like is the bad guy in a movie, and you go murder that person. Like, and you see yourself doing something terrible, and then, that kind of cycle can like move in a really negative direction, not just like you being a superhero in a Marvel movie or something, like I think there's massive, terrible implications involved in that too.
But why not? How does it not lead to that?
It will.
Feel, it seems like that is as far as I can imagine it, from an actual practical real life thing that would be commercialized. They could make so much money doing that. Here's the movie. Would you like to see yourself? Here's $100. Sure. And if they just do a CG swap, boom. You want to wife also to be the other character? Boom, $50, whatever. More than that, probably. People would pay so much to see themselves in like a super pro movie. And that's not even, I mean, there's so much to unpack with that, but I have to believe that's a thing. I mean, like Snapchat, TikTok, all these insanely powerful filters already have like an almost convincing implementation of it, and that's just, again, using a freaking iPhone.
The only thing that I did want to ask you about though is because we have this weird slightly different connection right now, because I have this X1D2 from Hasselblad and you have the 907X. And so I did want to get a quick little like nerd out about these medium format Hasselblad cameras. And
fantastic.
Because what do you have on there right now? Like, is that like a projection lens or something?
Oh my gosh. So this is a lens. I think I made a reel about it, but it's a 50 millimeter f 0.75. Look how much glass is there. It's fixed focal length, obviously, but also fixed focus.
Is it fixed focus?
There's only one distance that you can focus at. It's not very practical. But my favorite combination, which I don't have in front of me, is this is the lens. This would be my second favorite combination. This is the 80 millimeter f1.9.
Yeah.
And that's what caught my eye, obviously, other than this being a stunningly beautiful camera. What caught my eye about this medium format system is the first, to my knowledge, brand to release something that equates pretty close to a 50 millimeter f1.4 or 1.5 on full frame. Almost all the other medium format brands like Fuji, even Phase One, you're stuck in a 35 millimeter equivalent of like an f2 or even smaller. So you don't get that dreamy bokeh, basically. Which I love. That's part of how I roll. Yeah. And this lens gets you pretty much there. It's autofocus. It's built in. It's got a shutter, leaf shutter. So it syncs at 1/2000th of a second. What lens are you rocking? What do you have on your Hassi?
So, I mean, this is on loan. So I actually don't own this camera, but Hasselblad sent me this. I have the 30 mil 3.5. So that's, again, though, it's only like, it's like a 25-8 or so.
Yeah, that's weird.
So it's not super fast, but like the size is actually really nice. And I feel like it would be, I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I have this, and then I have the zoom that they sent me, which it would be cool for like landscapes and stuff. Cool. And then I have the 90, which is a 3.2. So it's still like a 2.5 or something like that. It's not super shallow, but I've used it for a couple weddings, and it's been really cool because the detail you get out of there is just like unreal.
Yeah, next level.
And I usually don't actually shoot at that like high of apertures, so I usually don't have that much extra detail anyway. So that's actually been kind of interesting too, is to see all that resolution and then that detail.
It makes an impact, and I think these are same sensors, right? Exact
same sensor,
same autofocus,
same
motor,
sensor.
I'm assuming.
Yep, pretty much everything.
Face tracking, for the most part. Right? No face tracking.
No, I mean, it's just contrast detect, like autofocus, which isn't great. But I think the thing about these two is like that camera is just so beautiful, like because it's modeled after like the old 500 series.
The one that went to space.
Come on,
dude.
Like I have that the actual film version, of that, and so I can stick that back on my actual film version too, which would be cool. But then the other thing is like this one, like is a totally different experience, but the ergonomics of this camera are like some of the best. It's one of the best feeling cameras I've ever had.
What's the shutter sound like? Can you rip one off?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing because the shutter's in the lens. So it depends on the lens itself, right? So like this, let's see if I can get this. Oh, it's memory card missing, so I can't actually fire it. But it's a pretty annoying shutter sound, to be honest. It's like a very like metallic, like tink kind of sound.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly satisfying.
Let's see here.
Yeah. And it's a pretty noisy autofocus too.
Yeah, it's like taking a couple of, I don't know, 5 years back in the no, man, maybe a decade back if you wanted a DSLR equivalent. This would be like shooting, gosh, what lens would have done this for in Nikon? I don't know. But it is a slower way of working, but you're right. This camera, I'm so obsessed with the layout and the operation. There's plenty I would change. It's awkward to have to hold this button to change exposure, and it's weird why they don't let you map certain things to do certain other things, but it's got the Leica magic going. You just want to pick it up and shoot with it purely because of how it looks, which is not the experience I get with my Canon stuff. As much as I love my Canon work, for personal,
they're amazing tools.
Yeah. But there's just something very motivating and inspiring about the style and design of this. And I could see it totally. I might, because I'm now acquiring so many lenses, the XCD mount lenses, I might pick up what you've got as well at some point, just to have the
30 is great.
But I mean, the actual body that you have. What's the model number? It's the X1.
The X1D2. So it's basically the same thing, except for just like the form factor of it is phenomenal.
Very slim. Yeah. And I know Fuji is also catching my eye quite often with what they're doing. Yeah. So it's very Leica-like.
It's very Leica-like, and it fits in that style really well. It's tiny. It's like, I mean, it's the size of like the EOS R. You know, it's not that much different in size. Has a really nice grip, all that kind of stuff, but it has the
giant
50 megapixel, 44 by 33 sensor.
I don't know why somebody doesn't push and do like an insanely bokeh-licious lens. I mean, maybe this is as far as they can push it. The 80
Fuji said that they're going to make a 1.7, an 80-1.7.
That's coming next year.
Yeah,
and
we'll
see. Medium format, their rangefinder medium format. I think actually maybe all of them actually do face tracking. Is it contrast detection, or maybe they do something else? But I think it's more of a focused experience, more in line with their crop sensor bodies, which is amazing. People love the autofocus on those cameras, I think. So.
Yeah, I feel like the difference in there too is like these ones, like the Hasselblad ones, are like an inspiring tool. Like you want to pick it up and use it just for the like love of photography. And the other ones, like every time I've picked up one of the Fuji ones, it probably does a better job in a lot of ways, but I just like, it doesn't make me want to use it.
Interesting.
Like it's just a different, like it just feels like I'm picking up another tool to use. It's just not like an inspiring. Because
would you agree that also trickles down to the menu layouts? I've been very happy with how, I mean, some weird things, but I love the menu on that. I think they're the same
so
menu.
Simple. Yeah, so simple. It's like it's like pulling up like an Android device or something. Like just like big icons.
But the Fuji menus are like, ugh. I don't know. They're very much, and it's like not as bad as Sony menus, but still. And I think that does play into the emotional thing that we're chipping away at here. That if the menu kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, it doesn't really matter operationally, physically in your hand, how great it is. Like you got to have that's. I mean, I love the Leica menus. They also nailed it.
Yeah, super mellow.
I felt I love the color choice, the palette that they used, the layout in general. I mean, there's always room for improvements. But so do you? Nice. So you did use it at a wedding? Okay, the portraits only.
Yeah, I've used it at two. I use it for portraits. I did use it for some getting ready stuff.
Can I see the battery? Do they share the same battery?
They might. Yeah, I think they probably do, which would be nice if you want to jump into that ecosystem.
Yep.
It's this guy?
Yep. Exact same one.
Yep. Same one. So yeah.
It doesn't come with you have to charge it in camera only unless you pay an extra $150 or something for
really? That's funny. Yeah. They sent me like the double battery charger, which would obviously be nice. It's like USB-C, and how much do you know how much these batteries are? Are they just stupid expensive? Like the
no, they're not ones? Too bad. I did buy an extra. I want to say somewhere in the $200 range. I can't quite recall. Which is
what the Leica ones are.
Do you have to send it back? Is that sort of like, send it back if you want, wink, wink, or do you actually?
No. Yeah, no, it's on loan for like a specific amount of time. They're actually going to send me that one next too, so it'll be fun because I'm tossing around. Like I've been wanting to get into the digital medium format game for a while, and ever since that camera was announced, I was like, man, this would be just so fun. It would fit my kind of like system, the way I photograph things really well. I already have that camera film wise and stuff. So yeah, I wish they would just send me one to keep, wink, wink. But yeah, I don't think I'm on that level yet, man.
Yeah. The lens that I most recommend you pair it with. It's a shame the electronic sensor isn't a little faster in how it scans the capture. Would you say it's 1/3 of a second?
I think it's 1/3 of a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because I was using it at a wedding, I was trying to pop back and forth between using like the actual XCD lenses and then adapting some of my Leica lenses, because I just got, adapters for that kind of stuff. And some of them work amazing, like the 50 Summilux works amazing. And then some other ones work great too, especially if you do like the X-Pan crop. Yeah. That like super wide, because then it takes out the corners and you just get the side, the super panorama version. But one thing that sucks about it is if there's any like LED lights, even like the string lights and stuff like that, the frequency thing. So you'll get this really cool shot, these big bokeh orbs and stuff like that, because it's, just like a, f1 equivalent or 0.95 or whatever. But then you'll get these lines in the bokeh because it just didn't read out correctly because of the shutter readout. And so it's just like, it's almost worthless if you're in an environment that is relying on those at all. You have to use like an XCD lens or whatever. Because no matter what shutter speed you're at, it just, it doesn't read out correctly.
I did 3 sessions with the 58 f1.2 Nikon manual lens, which you don't even have to crop. The vignette is not a problem. It's kind of shocking to me how well it's designed. And I've got sitting here the Canon 50 f1.0.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
Have you tried
that? Yes. Unfortunately, I can't seem to get any way to get the manual focus to adjust. It seems like when it's adapted,
it's like a focus by wire, right?
Yeah. Yep. So there's no way to accommodate that. So that sucks. Because I think this rear L.
Oh gosh, that would be unreal.
It would not vignette much at all on that sensor. Unfortunately, maybe I could pre-focus it on my camera, take it off, and then put it on. Yeah,
if you figured out what distance you wanted, for a specific portrait or something.
But the Nikon 58 1.2 is so. All 3 sessions I used it in were outdoor, diffused, cloud, and just natural light, and it was just a dream. But you have to be very careful. I had a couple.
You have to
more than I sent you some where.
Oh my gosh.
Even like if you don't hold that breath and keep it steady through the entire frame, a little longer than you think, you get that weird warble, and sometimes like half the shot will look fine, but then their legs are all blurry depending on if you like moved too soon. And if your client themselves, it sucks to have to say like, "Hey guys, I'm using a special camera. It's gonna be a little bit slower. Please don't move." People still they don't get it. They think that like it's fine if we move a little bit, but it's like, don't move.
No, please don't move. You will be exaggerated in a bad way. I think the thing though, like that's like special sort of about these cameras is like, I mean, obviously you don't shoot film, but that's what you have to do with those cameras anyway. That same camera, like the film version, you have to hold it like this. Then you have to like take a breath because it has a huge shutter and stuff like that. And you only get 12 photos per roll. So every time you take a photo, like it's,
very
money,
thoughtful.
And you have to be very like thoughtful about what you're doing. And so my kind of take on this is like, if you're going to have one of these and use it like that, like if you use it sort of more like a film camera and less like just a run and gun, like EOS R6 or something like that, then your experience and your expectation level will be met much better than if you're just anticipating something that's going to be whipping through and fast, and you have to be a little bit more methodical about it.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I love seeing these medium format sensors just tank the price. The barriers to entry are still very high, but what's cool is, as iPhones kind of erode away the quality of 35 millimeter full frame digital, because iPhones are getting scary good, and the low light is just, I think it's better now than, I mean, obviously it's a limited use case that you can really use it, but still it's like insanely clean detail in the low light on iPhones. As that erodes away, this medium format, if you can embrace it, and if they beef up the autofocus capabilities and some of the flash use cases a little bit better, I could see most professionals shooting medium format for just a differentiated look.
Yeah.
And,
well, especially
and the other thing we didn't even talk about is that when clients, it's a funny effect that when clients see a camera like this in particular,
yes,
or I assume your Leica, they then have a different emotional interpretation of what's happening in the whole experience of working with you versus, a more clinical DSLR or mirrorless Canon, which has kind of a stereotypical look.
Totally. Yeah. And like, I mean, the wedding that I just shot a couple weeks ago in like the Bay Area, one of the guests came up to me and is like, dude, what cameras are you shooting? Because I had the Hasselblad X1D around my neck, and then I had 2 Leica cameras. And the guy was just like, what? Like, it looks like you're pulling stuff that's made in like Scandinavia and Germany. And I went, yeah. This camera's made in Sweden. Those ones are made in Germany. Like, he's like, it looks like you're pulling around like sports cars and like, designer stuff. And I'm like, it's pretty much what it is.
I would say that's
so. I was like, you are spot on, my friend. But I would say like, the ergonomics and the size of like this Hasselblad camera, if they can stick, face tracking, eye detect, that level of autofocus and, the processing power that the buffer can handle quick shooting and stuff like this, I see no reason why people wouldn't go in this direction in the next few years, right? Like, because you're saying, 35 millimeter sensors in the iPhones and stuff like that, like differentiation, people can pack like 60 megapixels into a Sony body or whatever, but like the pixel depth of this just feels different. And the size, the form factor and stuff like that is so small. It's the same size as, pretty much the same size as like an EOS R, that kind of style. So,
but a very different for people that aren't going to watch this on video, very different grip. And it's just much more like minimalist and streamlined, harder
super
edges.
Minimalist.
Yeah, but it'll just slide into any bag almost. It's crazy. Hasselblad, they're coming out. I mean, it's funny because my first memory of their like here's our entry to digital was a crappy crop sensor camera with a wooden grip. Do you remember that?
The Lunar or something, or like whatever that was. It was
it was a miss.
It was literally like a rebranded like Panasonic camera or something.
Yeah,
it was the same sensor, same everything, right? Like, and it just was like pretty ugly. And was like 4 times the price of the exact same camera that it had ripped off.
It had no soul. And I don't know I haven't really done any research into them as a company, if they were bought and sold to anybody else. I know more about Leica than I know. Hasselblad. Okay.
Hasselblad was sold to DJI. So like the drone company, the Chinese drone company owns it now.
That's a fantastic sign then, because they push things. I love hearing that. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Well, so that's why like the Mavic Pro 2 or whatever, they have like the version that has the Hasselblad camera on it, like the Hasselblad branded camera on the drone, because I don't know how like autonomous they are and how much direction DJI has over Hasselblad, but from what I know, they were bought out by DJI, and so they have crazy resources now because they have that backing behind them.
I mean, they stuck to their guns as far as film went for far too long, I'm guessing, and kind of wrecked the business. I love this camera. I do. I can see why, the tactile experience of using this married with the principled approach that is required to use film. I can see why people had such an emotional attachment and really didn't want to switch to anything digital, because it hits you on a deeper level here, but it's hard to separate that from, if that's all you ever knew as a photographer, it'd be really hard to accept using something less fun like a Nikon DE1 or whatever the first digital cameras were.
Well, that's like why I shoot. I mean, this is a totally another conversation, but like that's why I still shoot a lot of film and stuff like that, because the experience of taking the photo on something else, and that's why I shoot Leica too. The experience of taking that on, it feels like I'm using an instrument. It feels like playing an instrument versus like programming something on a computer.
I was going to say, yeah, using a keyboard to trigger a sample versus actually playing the violin or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I mean, obviously that's super exaggerated, but the perfection and the amount of just work that the camera can do on your behalf for you, like on these new cameras with all these eye detect and everything like that, is incredible. And so it almost takes some of the challenge away from it, you know, because like me and you, I feel like we've been doing this about the same amount of time. I feel like I've known you for probably like a decade. And like some of the stuff is just like old hat. You don't have to really think about it anymore, you know, like when you're on a wedding day and stuff like that. And especially as the camera does more and more and more for you, I think that's why, you know, like I like to shoot these Leica cameras and do all these other things, and you like to experiment with different lenses and random stuff, because it gives us like something on a really predictable day that is unpredictable, and something that like forces creativity and that kind of thing. That's another conversation, I'm sure. But
I often say, like, I limit the amount of backup gear I take too, because, you know, I've had wedding. It finally happened once. I would say this, and then it finally occurred. One flash and it didn't work, so I had to use my video light the entire reception to photograph dancing in a way that I was super stressed about, but I pulled it off, and I knew that I could manifest a solution if it presented with, oh crap, my flash is dead, I don't have a backup flash, what do I do? And it worked, and it was awesome, and it was exciting, and you need some of that, because after about 3 years and maybe 40 weddings, you start to hit the edge, and there's a brief period of time where you're just in this nirvana state of, I know I can walk into any scenario and photograph it well, and clients are going to be happy.
Yeah.
The other side of that nirvana is I need to make this fun for myself now. I need to I need to keep this from feeling like a job, because I'm an expert in whatever, you know, every area, but practically that I need to be. You gotta do that.
And then that joy is like, I think that's why a lot of people hire you, though, because like they see the joy that you have in creating something really unique and different and whatever. And so that thing that becomes the thing that is driving you is the thing that ends up driving people to you.
Totally. And the more
amazing, and kind of like lines up.
Yeah, it does. The more you also present that in platforms like Patreon or whatever, some of those behind the scenes windows, one of the unanticipated consequences of that I just did not think would happen was potential new clients seeing the like context, the wider context of where I made a photo, and wanting to hire me more because of that, because they realize like, oh, he's doing something none of our friends with their nice cameras could at all do. Instead of just keeping it completely under lock and key, and here's my work, hire me, giving some of that wider context. Of course, photographers are interested and they want to, you know, subscribe to Patreon or whatever, but clients also want to hire you more because of that openness and context. So it's pretty cool. It's nice when, you know, incentives and everything can align like that.
Totally. Sweet, man.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm gonna edit that out. Thank you so much for talking with me. I appreciate it. I'm trying to do more of these kinds of things. I'd love to talk with you again about whatever. Maybe
for sure,
months. Man. Yeah. Do you have a pretty busy winter? Or are things going to slow down? You know, as the
things. I just hit my last couple weddings for the year, so I don't have any shooting things for the next few months. Things always pop up here because once it starts snowing, then people go, ooh, like maybe we should elope in the winter here, because, you know, especially this year, I feel like. So we'll see if I do some stuff in the winter here.
Cool.
Then I have one actual like workshop that's still going through.
What?
So in December, so we'll see how that goes.
Local or international or national?
No, it's in Austin, Texas. So
that explains
it. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I know, right?
Although Austin has, my sister lives there. They've been comfortable with the safety measures, but that's intense. Okay, so it's like an in-person group workshop. Wow, cool.
Yep. So I'm just like a guest speaker at that, but
stock up on this.
COVID tests. Should be. Oh yeah, COVID tests and N95s, and should be good. Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck with everything. It was wonderful to talk with you, and let me know what you think about the 907X Hasselblad body whenever you get that. I'd love to see if you try any other lenses that maybe I haven't yet.
Right on. Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
See you, man.